very soon. I'm gonna have two phones
Okay.
here.
If anybody can see or hear us, let us know how the audio is.
Yeah. Let us
You can
know.
hear Armin
Testing,
speak. You can hear
testing.
me speak.
I have to be very close to this microphone, and people usually tell
Yeah.
me, "What's
Yeah.
wrong with your neck?" And I like it. There's nothing wrong with
Oh,
my
there it
neck.
is. We're good. On
That's good.
we're
All right.
okay.
I hear a little bit of an echo. Is that you or
No,
me?
no, that was just for a second. I muted it.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Oh, I see everybody. I see Mars and Renzo and Marco and Beej, and everybody's already here. Okay. Here we go.
So wait. Before you do that, let me just tell people why this is public. The reason why this is public is because we have once every month, Ali and I do a public Q&A, which is different from the other events we do, which is with guests, and they are private for patrons only.
Yeah, Mars is saying testicle 123, testicle 123. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
here we go.
All right, go on.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. This is our usually monthly. We do at least one of these Ask Us Anything episodes. So this is the chance for everybody out there to ask us questions. And we usually have a theme. This time we are talking about some of the common misconceptions about Islam and Muslims. Now, we're not limited to this topic. Obviously, we're going to try to focus on it and take some questions. But at the same time, we will be talking about a wide range of topics. So whatever you guys want to ask, feel free to fire away your questions in the YouTube live chat and on the Facebook live stream. So a couple of quick things before we start. SecularJihadist.com is the website. Thank you to everyone who is a patron, people who are supporting this podcast. It's making so many things here possible. We are growing really, really fast. We've had some amazing episodes recently. We had an episode with Sam Harris. We've had episodes with Stephen Pinker. We had Shan Taseer, who's the son of the assassinated governor, Salman Taseer, who was assassinated for standing up for Asia Bibi, who was charged with blasphemy in Pakistan recently. And we've had Abdullah Gandal, Abdullah Samir, just a lot of really, really interesting and riveting conversations. So do check it out. We're on iTunes, everywhere podcasts can be found. We are working on this project that once we get to 500 patrons, we're going to be able to start translating some of our episodes into languages spoken in Muslim majority countries like Arabic, Farsi, Malay, Urdu, Bengali, Turkish. So
does Malay cover both Malaysia? Like, I know Malay. What language is Indonesia? Is they say Indonesian, but then it seems like there's some Malay that is the same.
I think it's very similar to Malay because in my book when it was translated into Indonesian, that's when I kind of found out there was a lot of parallels between the two,
right.
But I'm not totally sure.
It's kind of like Portuguese and Spanish, maybe.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So if you would like to support us, we're on patreon.com/SJME. And if you can't support us over there, then we still want you. We're still, share the podcast wherever you can. Go to iTunes and leave us a review. That's actually very important. That helps the podcast rise to the top so that more people become aware of it. But in any case, everything has been going really, really well.
All right, let's go to the...
Beej,
oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, my neck is a little bit better, but I still have it. Depends on how much sleep I get, which is
Beej
not a lot.
Beej, you know how kind of a person somebody is when they remember these things? I've totally forgot about the fact that Beej sounds like she's a very caring person. I need to be more like
thank
Beej.
you, Beej. I appreciate that. I'm happy that you're concerned. So we're going to start with some questions from you guys. Starting with Zain. Zain is asking, what can South Asian and Iranian ex-Muslims do to dissociate themselves from anti-Arab racism? So this kind of broadly falls into the theme about the misconceptions about Islam and Muslims.
Yeah.
Iran has a very sort of interesting... Iran, Pakistan, and India all have sort of interesting love-hate relationships with the Arabs in the sense that they do follow the Arab religion. They pray in Arabic. A lot of their religious literature is in Arabic, but large portions of the population.
Wait,
There's a lot of
wait, what did you
anti-Arab
just say? You
racism.
said the large parts of Iran's literature is based in Arabic. Is that what you
No,
said?
the religious literature, the
Oh
stuff that
yeah.
they
Okay.
write, often it is. But there is also a lot of anti-Arab sentiment in
Yeah.
Iran
Too much.
for people who
I mean,
tend to think that the Arabs colonized Iran and took it over, and Islam was one of the vehicles with which they sort of destroyed the sort of proud civilization that they had before, their proud
the
history.
ancient
So
Persian Empire. I think, like they say, the glorious Zoroastrian Aryan race. There's a lot of ethno-nationalism mixed in with anti-Islam, which makes Iranian anti-Islam activism a little bit, I mean, not a little bit, very tricky. Because as soon as you start becoming an atheist activist within the Iranian community, you start noticing that there's a hell of a lot of racism, anti-Arab racism in there. And some people try to justify it, saying, "Well, these people have gone through so much shit. Of course, they're good. This is the reaction." But there's no excuse for racism. I think this is this is a battle. When I was still in Iran, I was still fighting, like the anti-Arab,
So-
anti-Afghan, anti-Turk.
Armin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is your mic selected on the thing? Because it sounds like you're on a laptop mic or
What?
computer mic. See if it is.
People-
But I mean, it sounds okay. It doesn't sound bad. I'm just saying usually
No,
it sounds
you're
bad.
right. Shit. What people said my audio is okay. Why didn't you tell? Testing. No. Testing. Is oh wait. I think I did. I think I removed his audio instead of fixing mine. Hold on. Yeah.
So
Okay, no, I have your audio back. Let me fix my audio. No, my audio
yeah.
is right. Let me here.
okay,
Here.
okay, perfect.
Okay, yeah, I selected
No.
the right microphone. Maybe I should just be closer, like this. What do you think?
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so so there is a lot of they tend to look at how a lot of countries think of British colonialism as something that took away and destroyed their history and their civilization. The Iranians actually quite rightly think that about the Arab and Islamic imperialism and how that their culture. So there is a lot of anti-Arab sentiment and anti-Islam sentiment. Interestingly, in Iran.
Anti what
That we hear
sentiment?
about.
What was the second one?
Anti-Islam
Yes.
as well.
I mean, it's mixed, and the anti-Islam sentiment is very much mixed with the anti-Arab sentiment. But the thing is that even the religious. So here's the thing: anti-Arab views in Iran is so strong that whether you're a nationalist or religious, but the two forces against each other. I mean, there are so many different movements and forces against each other, but the two main ones in Iran are the religious versus the nationalists. The people that think Islam above everything else, and the people that think Iran above everything else, right? And both of these forces use, because anti-Arab sentiments are so reliable in Iran, because everybody backs that up, both of these forces use that. So the religious force in Iran basically sees most Arabs are Sunnis and Iran is Shia. So basically they play on that play against Saudi Arabia. All the Sunni Arab, most Muslims are Sunni, and this is basically a Shia resistance against the majority Arab Sunni population around Iran, and also Turkey. I mean, Iran and Turkey are doing well right now, but that's not always. But when it comes to the nationalists, they say no. This whole problem with Iran is because of Islam, and Islam is a barbaric Arab invasion, an Arab a foreign influence that came and destroyed the superior Iranian Aryan culture. That the Islam should be for Arabs, because obviously Islam must be barbaric because it comes from such barbaric people. So let just the Arab keep Islam, and Iranians should not Iranian culture is so superior that it shouldn't have Islam, which is an Arab religion, as its religion, and they associate all the problems in Iran um, with the Arabs. So I mean, you can see that in some of their chants. It's so poisonous. Like, but a lot of people excuse that by saying, like, look, these are people. This is the new generation in Iran, and even some of the old generation that these people's lives have been fucked by Islam, right? And so they say, like, imagine if you look at the alt-right in the West, that's a reaction to some Islam coming to the West, some immigration coming to the West, some Muslims, coming and missing Western people's, some terrorism, some, and you get the alt-right rising because of that, right? So imagine if you had Islam ruled on you for 40 fucking years. So that would be the alt-right times infinity, times a lot more. So this is why a lot of the anti-Arab sentiments in Iran are so extreme that I don't even see that among the alt-right movements in the West. That's how extreme it sometimes gets, right? And this is, the anti-Arab view in Iran is not something new. I mean, Ferdowsi, which is a poet in Iran, which is a famous poet, especially a famous one of the nationalist favorite ones. The reason why they love him so much is because the Shahnameh book that he wrote is supposed to have no Arabic words in it, right? So he was trying to preserve the Persian culture and language, and he didn't use any Arabic words to write that entire book. And a lot of symbolism in his poetry is pro-Iran, pro-Persian, anti-Arab, and it romanticizes the history of Iran before the Arab invasion. So that's why people love him, like especially the nationalists love him so much. But a lot of people dispute that, though. But the interesting thing is that you see that also in Egypt a little bit. I was so shocked to see that in Egypt because Egyptians speak Arabic. So I mean, I don't know how common it is, but I know it exists in Egypt. People that say the Arab language was forced on us. Egyptians are technically not Arab. We're not Arab. We should go to. We came from the pharaohs. We were invaded. They ruined our culture and everything.
They also have a very sort of proud civilizational history.
So and the Lebanese,
right, similar, yeah.
And a lot of Lebanese also say, like, no, we're not Arab. So this whole we're not Arab. We got. The thing is, the Iranians have a lot easier way to say that because they're proud of the fact that they managed to resist enough to actually not have the language change, even though they got a lot of Arab words in it, just like Spain did. And also the font changed to Arabic font, but they say they still kept the Persian language thanks to people like Ferdowsi. But they say, like, we resist, like most of the Middle East, their language changed into Arabic, but I think only Turkey and Iran managed to keep their language. And Turkey not only kept their language because of Ataturk, they completely changed the font back from that they stopped using Arabic fonts and used Latin fonts. But the thing is that this question that you're asking is so important because basically it goes to the main misconception about Islam and Muslim. And I think people that follow us notice a lot, and that the main misconception about Islam and Muslims is the confusion between Islam and Muslim. That's a number one misconception, right? That whenever we're talking about Islam, people assume we're talking about Muslims, and whenever we're talking about Muslims, people assume we're talking about Islam. And then people just keep using these two words interchangeably. And this is why a hatred for Islam translates into a hatred for Muslims, and it which leads to generalizations and bigotry and stuff like that. And I think that's among all the misconceptions, that's probably the first one.
And I think I should probably explain that. This is one of those things I've noticed, that even though I've been saying this for close to 10 years now, it's so important that I have to keep on saying it again and again, that Islam is a set of ideas that's codified in a book, in the Quran, in the Hadith, But the Muslims are very different. Muslim has become pretty much almost a birth identity now, where if anybody's born into a Muslim family,
I
they
disagree with that.
consider them. No, no, I mean, we're not talking about our definition of Muslim. We're
Right,
talking
right.
about like for example, the Pew Research organization poll, or when they do their projections, they say in 2050, Islam will be the biggest religion in the world. So that's not necessarily true. Islam may not be, but what will be true is people who are of Muslim heritage or were born of Muslim parents or had Muslim ancestors, they will be the most populous in the world. Now, are all of them going to believe in Islam? Well, you don't know. 1/4 of people in the United States who are born in Muslim families no longer identify as Muslim. So there's, and 1/4 is a very, very big percentage. I mean, we're seeing numbers like that rising all over the world. And if you listen to this podcast, we talk about that a lot. So in that sense, to the rest of the world, these people are still called Muslim. When we talk about banning people from certain Muslim countries, the connotation is that you're banning Muslims from coming in, but the fact is that a lot of those people are not. I mean, I was one of those people in those other countries. Armin was one of the people in one of those other Muslim countries where we could be banned from. And then there are loads of people like us that would be included under the Muslim label, but they're not necessarily. Most of them, even believing Muslims haven't even read the Quran from end to end. They don't even speak the same language. So that's a very key distinction, the difference between criticizing Islam and demonizing Muslims. Which kind of brings us, the next questions related to this and about this misconception, where Beej is asking, it's asking us to comment on the UK Parliament saying that Islamophobia is a form of racism.
Wait, what the hell? When did that happen?
Well, apparently, I mean, I'm not surprised. I don't know the details of it. Beej, if you could explain, that would be great. But we did have, I can speak about Canada. And in Canada, Islamophobia was sort of officially
Wait,
treated
is this
as a
recent
form.
news? Is this recent news? What Beej
I think
said?
so. Can you look it up to find out
No,
some
I have too
more
much
details?
live stream stuff and software open right now. If I
Okay,
at
I'll
my
I'll
computer,
look it up in a bit. But
but
this is, I mean, whether the UK Parliament said it or not, and but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. It's important talking about, because a lot of people think that Islamophobia is a form of
okay, but
racism.
how do you respond to people that say, okay, you can't separate people from belief? People are their beliefs, and beliefs would not exist without people.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is that Islam is not necessarily the belief of a lot of people who identify as Muslim. It's just not. It's not like many of them. There are many people who identify as Muslim now who say that the Quran isn't the word of God. It was written by a man. Many, many, many young people that I talk to say that now, that they identify as Muslim. So their belief is not Islam per se. Their belief is that Muhammad or somebody else wrote the Quran, which is overtly un-Islamic.
So can I tell you my classification and my definitions really quick, okay? So I think when it comes to defining Muslim, if you have to have a definition, because if you don't have a definition, then the more Muslim is useless, right? People are like, oh, if you have a definition, then you're excluding some people and you're including some people. Well, you have to do that. You have to draw the line somewhere, or else it's just a meaningless term, right? And I say when we come to defining Muslims, let's just come with the most inclusive, accepting definition as possible, as most, the umbrella term that we can. And I think the most inclusive definition, if somebody is somebody that believes in Allah, or believes in a one God, believes in that Muhammad is the prophet of God. And here's the thing: I didn't even say last prophet, to be even more inclusive, right? Muhammad was a prophet of God, and the Quran is the direct word of God. Only these three, nothing else, right? You don't even have to have read the Quran. You don't have to know anything about the Hadith. You don't have to be a practicing Muslim. As long as you believe in these three things, you're a Muslim. You could be a bad Muslim. You could be a good Muslim. You could be a non-practicing Muslim. You could be a practicing Muslim. You're a Muslim, right?
Yeah, but the problem is, like, when you, how many people, the number of people who
Armin's
actually
audio is
agree.
deafening. What the hell do I do? Should I go farther back? Here, I'll go a little bit farther back. I'm gonna get a
Oh, you
headset
do
like
that?
yours.
Yeah, so I will so I'm going to kind of, you know how you just said that you're not going to say the last prophets. Now, a long time ago,
But
you would have said, okay, the last prophet would be the most inclusive. That would be sort of a hard line. But now, because lots of Ahmadi Muslims believe in another prophet after Muhammad, so they wouldn't be included in that. So in any case, we have Allah, we've got Muhammad. A lot of people just say if you believe in Allah as the one and only God and Muhammad as a messenger, you're a Muslim. They don't even go towards the Quran. So that definition can also be something that you would disagree on. Like some people,
I know.
that's-
Okay, I know that people disagree on this. The thing that's why I said this is the most inclusive definition. Obviously, other people's definitions are going to be more exclusive, right? Many Muslims disagree with this. Like many Sunnis think Shias are not Muslim, many Shias think Sunnis are not Muslim. Blah blah blah. But the thing is, I'm not saying that this is the definition. I think this is the most inclusive definition, right?
Sure, yeah,
But
that's fine. The only thing is that I think there are two different things. One is how we would define, you and I would define Muslim based on what we know, and we do tend to know more than most Muslims, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. And the other thing is how people identify, how the U.S. government would identify Muslims, how the Pew Research poll would define Muslim,
Right.
and they all have different definitions of this. So,
And people who say that as long as you say you're a Muslim, then you're a Muslim, that's bullshit. Because if I say, for example, I believe in a conscious creator of the universe, I believe in a God, but I say I'm an atheist, then you're like, no, you're not. You could call yourself an atheist, but that doesn't make you an atheist, right? So
I mean, that's
just because,
contradictory.
So if somebody says, like, anybody that just says I'm a Muslim, I count them as a Muslim. I'm like, no. If somebody says I don't believe in God, I don't think Muhammad was the prophet, I don't think Quran was anything special or divine at all, but I identify as a Muslim, I'm like, well, you're not. Go ahead and identify as a Muslim. I mean, okay, so you could be strategic. Maybe you're identifying as a Muslim for strategic reasons, and go ahead and do that. But technically, you're not a Muslim. But go on.
Yeah. So I'd ask you this question. I disagree with you a little bit here. If someone comes up to me and they say I'm a Muslim, like, okay, what do you believe in? Like, I believe in Allah. I believe that Muhammad was a messenger of Allah. But I don't know if the Quran was written by God, because the Quran came in later, it was compiled by a whole bunch of people afterwards. So I think maybe the original revelations that Muhammad had, who I believe was the messenger of God, I think what he had, I think the Quran has been diluted, or it may have some stuff in it.
Sorry.
So when that happens,
I mean, I think even
so,
a smiley.
So now, if someone tells me that, I would still consider them a Muslim if they identify, because they believe in Allah and the Messenger. Like the kalima, or the shahada, the declaration, is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. It doesn't say anything about the Quran.
Yeah, but there's nothing but Muhammad is a shell without the Quran. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So I mean, your Muhammad is just a word. The Shahadat is just Allah and Muhammad. I agree with you, but Muhammad that if you don't believe in the Quran that as direct word of God, then Muhammad is nothing but just a word. I wouldn't consider you a Muslim at that point.
That's fine, but you understand how that definition can be challenged, and you could at least understand, even if you don't agree, you can understand why other people would say,
the definition has to be useful. Okay, the definition has to be. I mean, this is something that 99% of Muslims, both scholar and average Muslims, quote unquote scholar and average Muslims, would agree that if somebody doesn't think that the Quran is the direct word of God, they're not a Muslim. Okay, like this is a smart. Like even the most liberal ones, I
disagree. I think that if they think of, because I've met a lot of people that are just Allah and Muhammad, and they're good, and they have doubts. They think the Quran is divinely inspired. They respect it, but they don't think it's the direct word of God.
Let me clarify something though. So even though not knowing the Hadith and not practicing Islam doesn't make you a non-Muslim, these are still Islamic beliefs and Islamic practices, right? And this is why Islam and Muslims are completely separate. People are like, how could you be separate when you need people to have these beliefs, and beliefs are nothing without people believing in them? But my example is that, well, imagine like the Mayan religion right now, right? let's say I'm pretty sure you could find people somewhere in Mexico or somewhere that believe in it. But let's say there's nobody left that believes in the Mayan religion, right? Does it? I can still look at it and say, yeah, this is not true. It's fascinating, but obviously not real, right? It's pretty obvious, right? I can say that about that belief system even if there's nobody believing in it, right? So this is why there's a lot of Islamic belief that many Muslims not only don't believe in it, they have no clue that there exists, but you could criticize Islamic belief without actually and Islamic practices without Muslims believing in it or practicing it.
I'm good with that definition. I'm just saying that it's never going to be and this is probably a good thing. It's never going to be an objective definition. It'll still be somewhat arbitrary as time goes.
I'm not. Nobody should claim. I hope nobody thinks I'm claiming this is the definition. And no, I'm saying this is. I think this is the most useful definition. Anything less than this is useless. Is too broad. Is so broad that it's useless. And anything more than this is too exclusive. So I'm just saying that this is where I think the definition. I mean, we knew, and people are like, oh, labels. Why do we need labels? You need labels. Every single word that is coming out of your mouth is a label for something, right? So without labels, you can't communicate properly. Anyways.
Okay. So anyway, let's move on. We have a lot of questions. So, but that was kind of interesting. So I want to get back to this Islamophobia thing. BJ, I'm going to address it really quick because both of us have talked about it before. So, Armin, unless you disagree with me, just I'll say jump in if you disagree. Islamophobia, I think, is a misnomer. I do acknowledge that anti-Muslim bigotry exists. It's real. I've been on the receiving end of it. I've been told to get out of this after the Charlie Hebdo attacks. Had lots of people saying, you're a dirty terrorist, get out of here, because they didn't know what I did, basically because of my name and, what I look like and the family I come from. So I know that it's real. But I think anti-Muslim bigotry is a better term for it because bigotry is against people. It's not necessarily against ideas. When you have words, when we talk about anti-Jewish bigotry, you say anti-Semitism, which is a people-based term. It's not an ideology-based term. You don't say Judaismophobia. So I think Islamophobia conflates the bigotry against Muslims with criticism of Islam as an idea, and it's that's why it's so useful for groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, who love this term because it gives them the opportunity to exploit the pain that a lot of genuine victims of anti-Muslim bigotry undergo, and it allows them to use that and exploit it for the political purpose of stifling criticism of Islam. So I have testified about this to the Canadian Parliament, and because they were going to pass this Islamophobia motion called M103, which many of you may have heard of, and fortunately we were able to create enough doubt about the word and its definition for them to include that in the report. And Islamophobia did not figure very prominently in the report, and it was mainly focused on other forms of sort of genuine racism in other contexts apart from Islam. So even though it's still in the title, so I think that overall that's kind of my say on it. So no, I don't think it's a form of racism. You can't convert out of being black or white. You can convert out of religion. You can, there all of the practices and the sort of the attire that you wear. I mean, you do, all of that can change, but it can't change when it comes to race. So that's a very distinct difference. Armin, do you want me to go on?
No, that's pretty good. Works? Yeah.
Raza, Bahasa. Bahasa, you're talking about the Indonesian language. Bahasa is based on Malay. Thank you for that.
Wow, you're all the way up there. You should go.
Ashley is saying this is her first live stream, so thank you for joining us, Ashley. Hello, welcome. Okay, so Exponent is saying, I'm sure you've talked about it, but would like to hear your thoughts on the Khashoggi ramifications in the Women's March.
Oh yeah, we had an entire episode on this.
We did have an entire episode. So Exponent and anybody else who's listening to this and they're interested in the Khashoggi murder, we had an entire episode on that where we discussed it in detail. So you can go back on it. I think that it's brought some much needed pressure on MBS. Not nearly enough.
Yeah.
But
this is gonna make me want to say so much. It's gonna.
Okay. So let's not get to it because we have a whole episode on it.
Go through. You can see his Saudi Arabia's flag and MBS on the cover. Check our channel, YouTube channel. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do have to say one thing about this that I think is the most important part, and it's not even related to Khashoggi generally. It's related to Saudi Arabia. As you have seen, Trump is still touting Saudi Arabia. He's still thanking them for the low oil prices. He still refuses to acknowledge that MBS was responsible for the murder of Khashoggi, even though his own CIA has said it. So again, just like he took the word of Putin over his FBI, he's taking the word of the Crown
Okay.
Prince,
I
Saudi
have to-
Arabia, over the CIA. Right?
I have to add something then,
Yeah.
because the only good thing about one of the very few good things about Trump is that he just says the things that a lot of other presidents do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
this is the war on Yemen by Saudi Arabia, which is now only people started paying attention just because of one resident of the United States got killed.
Obama
Even though
supported it too.
this is what I'm trying to get at. Even this is one person that died, and thousands of children are being starved to death, and it didn't matter. Saudi Arabia bombing innocent people until one U.S. resident died. And Saudi Arabia's war on innocent civilians, starving people as using starvation as a weapon, using starvation of children as a weapon, and United States and other countries, France, UK, Germany, Greece, all of these countries financially supporting Saudi Arabia and selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, knowing that Saudi Arabia is using these weapons against innocent civilians. And when we say Trump supported Saudi Arabia, Trump did increase the support for Saudi Arabia. Obama
overtly did it, yeah.
Obama also did the same thing. If there was any justice in the world today, Obama, Trump, MBS, everybody in IRGC, they all would be on trial right now, answering to the crimes they committed for supporting a war on civilians. Both Obama and Trump have blood on their hand when it comes to their support for Saudi
Clinton,
Arabia.
Bush, all of them. I mean, this is, and this is kind of what I was getting at. Right? The Khashoggi is sort of one thing that happened. There's so many atrocities Saudi Arabia has committed in the past that all of them have been sort of pretty much ignored until this came around. For some reason, this got blown completely out of proportion, even though there's so much other stuff you can get them on. But the thing that I want to stress on this is that the reason that all of these, there has been bipartisan support for Saudi. People talk about, a lot of Muslims talk about the support there's too much support for Israel. The U.S. Unconditionally supports Israel. The U.S. doesn't really unconditionally support Israel. There's still more friction with Israel than there is with Saudi Arabia. With Saudi Arabia, it is truly unconditional. And the difference also is that Saudi Arabia, that's where 15 of the 19 hijackers for 9/11 came from. That's where Osama bin Laden was from. Those over there, I grew up there, so I know that they teach us on TV, in school textbooks, to hate infidels and to hate non-Muslims, to kill them and so on. So it's and the main reason that everybody supports them is because they have a monopoly on the oil of the world, and people know this. So now, even though the U.S. has greatly decreased the amount of oil it imports from Saudi Arabia, the fact still is that if Saudi Arabia decides to lower production of oil, oil prices will go up around the world, including in the U.S. People are going to become unemployed. It'll affect the stock market. It'll affect the economy. So these presidents, no matter how much, a lot of times they hate it, but they have to support them. So Saudi Arabia has a chokehold on it. And this is why I think, and this is, I always stress this point, that clean energy, right, and the reform of just clean, renewable energy is a national security issue. It's not just an environmental issue. It's a national security. The more we invest on that, the more we get off the teat of oil, the less dependent we are on that. We talk about Obama bowing to the Saudi king. We talk about, Trump bowing to the Saudi king, Bush holding hands with the Saudi king. All of us bow to the Saudi king when we pump gas into our cars. All of us do. Can
I add something here? Yeah. This is something I also don't get. People go after Trump for so many things, like grab them by the pussy, just this stupid thing he said, that stupid tweet he said, and this captures people's, anger a lot more than Trump, supporting Saudi Arabia's war on children, on innocent civilians. Like, I don't understand why people's anger are not proportional to someone's actual harm that is causing, I mean, yeah, okay, a stupid tweet, this, that, some racist shit he said here. I mean, he says some racist shit, but you see, like, he's not, like, killing non-whites in the United States, right? But he's killing Yemenis, like that's where your anger should be. I mean, okay, all of the racist, maybe, maybe some other stuff that he says, yeah, okay, stupid, bullshit. Yeah, but why is that other stuff is not getting enough attention? Why his support for Saudi Arabia is not getting more attention? It should be getting more attention. Your tax money is getting spent on killing people, killing civilians. Like,
those bombs say made in USA on them. They do. Like, there's a $15 billion arms deal, $1 billion arms deal between Canada and Saudi Arabia. So I mean, that's those deals are intact. Anyway, we could go on and on about this, but we have a whole episode on it, so do check it out. Yeah. The second part of this question was about the Women's March calling out Sarsour. Long overdue. I'm glad that.
Wait, they did? When did that happen? I didn't.
They did. The head of the Women's March, the woman who started it, it started with, I think, Alyssa Milano and Deborah Messing. This is, I think, maybe a month ago or something. They started when they're planning the next Women's March. I think, if I'm getting the details right, then some of these high-profile actresses who were part of it, Alyssa Milano, who sort of kickstarted or recently restarted the Me movement.
Is this in the past week or so, or is it more?
No. Past, I think, about a month ago. Oh. So she called it out, and she said that the leaders of the Women's March, their support for anti-Semitic leaders like Louis Farrakhan, that's so they can't support it. So they spoke out against Linda Sarsour, and then the head of the woman who founded the Women's March, Teresa Shook, came out and wrote an entire statement completely dissociating herself from it. So this is the woman who founded the Women's March, and she said that this is not the direction I wanted to go in. And I think it's excellent that Sarsour she was called out by a lot of liberal people. She's called out by Jake Tapper. She's been a lot of people have, especially for her support for all of these sort of anti-Semitic leaders and some of the things that she said about Jews and stuff in the past. So I think it's a very welcome development. It's something that I thought was going to happen for some time, and everybody who has been calling her out over the years.
Did you see the video of the congresswoman that said that when she won the election, she said that she's going to fight for Palestine or something like that? Do you see that video? That was pretty weird. Like, they had like Palestinian flags instead of United States flag all over the place. You didn't see that video?
Awesome. Yeah, no, I didn't see that, but I think that's they can have all kinds of like political positions, but that's very different. I mean,
it's just weird to me that somebody gets elected to United States to the United States Congress, and their main agenda is to do something for Palestine, for a different country.
That's actually that's perfectly because what happened is that there are two Muslim women who have been. One of them is Ilhan Omar. She wears a hijab. The other one, Rashida Tlaib,
I'm not talking about being Muslim. I'm talking about them having Palestine in their agenda more than United States, which is the country that they were elected to serve.
No, I don't think it's more than that. There's many people who come in and
go
have
look
Israel
at. I'll send you. Well, yeah, that's weird as well. But I'll send you the link. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Yeah. No. I've seen it. I know that there's a lot of people who have that. So people have all kinds of international issues on their agendas too. That doesn't mean that they're not focused on. I mean, I don't know about this situation. This may have been a specific thing that I don't know about. But I think that people come in with all kinds of issues because they're.
By the way, we got super chat from Lau. You didn't see that?
Lau. Thank you.
Is that to Australia?
Lulu. I think it's Lulu.
Lulu. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Does that A there mean that it's an Australian? Australian. $2 Australian, I think. I'm just making
so I'm going to try to go to some sort of have different people. I mean, I know that some of you are asking multiple questions, and they're great questions. I just want to make sure that we give everybody a chance. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so some of the so Ashley's asking. Ashley, this is your first live stream. Welcome. She's saying this may not be a question for ex-Muslims. That's perfectly fine. Why do people write a God with the hyphen instead of the O, so as not to offend, given though that's not the name of the Abrahamic God? So I tweeted about this earlier today. As a, it's kind of interesting when there are people who write G-D instead of God. It's usually Jewish people because they're not supposed to take the Lord of the name in vain. But the actual reason is that when you have printed documents, or this is what they say, when you have printed documents, if you write God on it and you have to eventually dispose of those documents, that's disrespectful to God. So if you write G-D, you don't have the full word God on it, so you can throw away those documents and God won't get pissed. So God will basically say, oh, wait, hold on. What's that you're throwing away? You're throwing away my name? Show me. And like, oh, okay, it's just a hyphen. It's all right. I forgive you. So that's apparently something that the creator of the universe really cares about.
Wow.
That is the justification that's given, and it's actually even more juvenile than...
Actually, there's a story about this in the life of Muhammad when Muhammad was close to when they eventually captured Mecca. They were signing a peace agreement with the Qurayshis, right? And when they were Muhammad can't read and write, so he had Ali, and this is a favorite Shia story. I don't know if this is Sahih or not, but whatever. But Ali was writing, Muhammad was dictating, and Ali was writing the peace treaty for Muhammad. And he wrote Muhammad's name as Muhammad Rasulullah, which is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. And the Qurayshi representative, I think it was a Qurayshi representative, he said, no, I don't recognize you as Rasulullah. I don't recognize you as a messenger of Allah. Your name is Muhammad bin Abdullah, right? Abdullah, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what you have to, that's what you have to write. That's what we recognize as your name. And Muhammad told Ali to just go ahead and cross out Rasulullah and write bin Abdullah, and Ali said, no, I can't cross out Allah, Rasulullah. This is not something I'm willing to do. So Muhammad said, just give me the pen and show me where it says Rasulullah. And Ali shows him where it says...
because he couldn't read, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He genuinely couldn't read.
Yeah, Muhammad couldn't see where it says Rasulullah, so he made Ali show him where it says Rasulullah, and Muhammad crossed Rasulullah for Ali because Ali said he couldn't cross out. Muhammad, apparently he's in a position where he can actually go ahead and cross out Rasulullah, but Ali wasn't. So this is supposed to be like a very beautiful story that Ali could not accept this command from Muhammad to cross out the name of Allah. Anyways, this is supposed to make you like, oh wow, like make you feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'm just a little. I just like to when you have just grown, literate, educated adults who are sort of obsessively saying peace be upon him after they say the name of their prophet, or if they're writing G-D instead of God just because they're scared to disrespect, as if God can't fill in the blank. Just beware of people like that. There's something compromised in them, I think, in general. But anyway, so Fahad is asking.
Oh, we got another super chat, by Amir for $2 super chat with a question.
Amir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What was the question?
Do you guys have any debates coming up? We should have debates. Wait, debates between the two of us or between us and somebody else? And who do you recommend, Amir? Because you gave us the $2 super chat, tell us who you want us to debate, and we'll try to make it happen.
Yeah, we'll try to make it happen.
Yeah,
Usually,
it's up to you.
Amir, I gotta say that even though I've tried to do this, the closest I got was that, and this was pretty good. That when I spoke at the UTM, University of Toronto, Mississauga, in October, they did have an Islamic studies professor come and do the sort of start the Q&A session afterwards, and we had a good lively debate then that also brought in a lot of Muslim students into the audience, and it was a very sort of vibrant and fun conversation. Unfortunately, even when people challenge me to a debate online and I tell them, okay, I'll take you on, often they disappear.
No, we had some great debates on this show. We had Daniel.
No,
we
have. Yeah. And can I announce your video that you've got coming up? We should talk about that. Or
Well,
do you
I
not?
mean, I don't want to too promotional.
Okay, then I won't say anything. Sorry, guys, I shouldn't have mentioned it,
No, no,
but
no.
now
Okay.
you know. Now it's a
Yeah,
good teaser.
yeah. Okay.
So,
Oh wait, you're talking about the one with Imam Tawhidi?
okay, I guess you announced it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Imam
Okay.
Tawhidi and Daniel Hakikaju, yeah,
Yeah,
two
yeah.
sort of Muslim people. Daniel is very different from Imam Tawhidi, obviously, but I think that's going to be really good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
going to be coming
That's
out on.
gonna. Yeah, we had a. Oh yeah, actually, Amir. Here's your answer. We had the debate. I had a debate with Imam Tawhidi and Daniel Hagaju, reformist Muslim and fundamentalist Muslim. That will be. I'll follow me on Twitter, at Armin Navabi, and on Facebook,
Mm.
and I'll post it at some point. Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
I should probably, I'm going to plug this because I don't know if Armin will, but Armin has a new project. Can I announce it, Armin? Permission?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It's called Ideas Unboxed, and it's basically this kind of thing where he goes and he meets people, he debates them. If you've seen his video of him going and talking to like Muslims in Australia or outside ISNA, the one that he did with XMNA, where he went to the ISNA conference and talked to Muslims over there, and he did an amazing job of it. I mean, these are more of this kind of content, the actual outreach and discussing things with um, Muslims and approaching them and really getting that dialogue going, which I think is amazing, and is coming out under Ideas Unboxed. So watch for that coming soon. Fahd is asking, what do you know about Sayyid Muhammad Jaunpuri, who claimed himself to be the Mehdi back in 1500 AD in India, and his followers, the Mahdivis in India and Zikris in Pakistan? I don't really know about him. I've never heard of him actually, but I know that there are many people who have claim themselves to be the Mehdi, and there are some fringe groups that do tend to follow them. Um, so yeah, this does happen. Mehdi, for those people who don't know, is a messiah who is supposed to come closer to the end of the world, and
Wait, what's
he's
the
not a
question about
prophet.
Mehdi? I can
He's
talk to you about
asking
them.
about a specific man in India in 1500 AD named Sayyid Muhammad Jaunpuri, who claimed to be the Mehdi,
Oh.
and he
Did you
has some
know?
followers.
Do
So
you know Khomeini at some point kind of subtly suggested that he's the Mehdi?
he never denied he wasn't,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so a lot of people. I told you about this, and when I grew up, a lot of people in my extended family loved Khomeini. They had pictures of him on the wall and everything like that, and many people really thought of
You
him. They
know,
thought he was the
as a
Mehdi.
I never when I lived in Iran, I never knew how many non-Iranians, like
Oh
Khomeini. So
Jesus!
when I came outside to Canada and I was watching Shia videos and they were like quoting Khomeini, I was like, what the hell? These people are not Iranian, and like why like why are non-Iranians so obsessed with Khomeini? I didn't know like he's celebrated outside of Iran that much, which is weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, let's keep going. Ashley has a comment. She's talking to Razib. She's talking about the Iona Italia podcast called Tea for Two that she does with Helen Pluckrose. I've been on that. I love talking to them. They're two of my favorite people. And Razib was recently on it. Razib, I have to actually listen to that episode too. So I'll check it out. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, yeah, United States of America is
But
saying, why is
can I
Ali
just
Rizvi
say
so
something
sexy?
about Mehdi again? You know how with Jesus you have a whole bunch of many times throughout history you have people saying, "Oh, he's coming any day now," or some people say like, "Oh, he's already here," and some people are like, "No, we would never know," or "No, if he comes back, it would be such a dramatic change that everybody would know." So all that drama with when Jesus is coming and whether he's came or who is he, maybe it's that guy, all that drama that you have with the return of Jesus, Shias have that. 12 verse Shias, which is majority Shias, have that with Imam Mahdi. But go on,
Yeah,
Ella.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, United States of America said why Ali Rizvi so sexy. I'm pretty sure that's sarcastic, but I'll tell you that it's probably because you haven't seen all of me up close.
Oh,
That's why you have that delusion. But and then so Moose Gal is saying, after you both decided to leave Islam, what are some Islamic beliefs and practices you were glad to leave behind? Oh man, do we have enough time for this, Armin?
I don't know. Wait, can I give you a list? Oh, wait. Maybe she's just asking for the most, not all, like the top things you were happy about.
So what are what are maybe let's do the top three. What are the top three things that you were happy about leaving? And let's make it quick.
I don't know. I don't know if I. Okay, well, I mean, come on. You can guess. You're a teenage boy. I was a teenage boy when I left Islam. So what do you think was the?
Armin, come on, don't ask me the answer. The question's for you. You got to answer it.
Well, I
Do it.
mean, not feeling guilty about your sexual urges. Obviously,
Okay.
that was the most. That's something that I think
That
most.
sounds so clinical with sexual urges.
What?
I like that. You sound like one of those guys who says coitus instead of, anyway, God.
No, I mean
It's
that's
like we
pretty out.
engaged
I
in
mean,
coitus, sexual urge.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's.
okay,
I
I
mean,
got it.
not having a dictator living inside your brain. That's pretty. That's pretty. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of people think that's why you left Islam, which is not
Uh,
the case. Like you didn't. I mean, when I left Islam, I didn't want to leave Islam. I was forced to leave Islam by logic, and some of the consequences were, being knowing that somebody is not judging you inside your mind all the time, and that's very liberating.
nice choice.
But it's not the other way around where Muslims suggest like, no, you wanted to sin, that's why you left Islam. Nope, it was, sorry,
So,
you can't claim that you know me more than myself. It was the other way around. But go on, Ellie.
okay. What's number 2 and 3?
Number 2 and 3. Well, number 2 and 3. I mean, I was kind of smug about eating during Ramadan. I wanted to shove that in everyone's face. I also loved openly questioning. Again, this is a rebellious phase, right? And I lived in Iran, and saying stuff about Islam that made people go like, "What the fuck? Why can't you just say that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's in the Quran. Go look it up." I really enjoyed making people like, so talking shit about Islam in an Islamic community, and watching people's reactions was a guilty pleasure of mine. But it was but it wasn't a good idea. This was me being a rebellious teenager, but my parents rightfully thought that I'm gonna get myself killed, and that's why they were so happy to send me to Canada. But go on, Ellie.
Yeah. I would probably agree with those 3.
All right.
I think that one of the biggest things was just the guilt. I mean, there was a lot of guilt associated with, and I kind of went in and out anyway. I was never really a very, very strong believing Muslim anyway, but but there was some sort of guilt involved, and it was nice not to have that guilt. And
Yeah.
giving up, I'll tell you what it was. It was giving up being able to use your intellect and reason instead of using faith. And rather than saying, okay, what does the Quran or whatever say about this? Should I be doing this?
I didn't have that because I thought my thought as a Muslim, I thought my Islam was based on reason. So, but go on. Yeah.
No, I always felt that dichotomy for the longest time. I always thought that what's sin and not, or what's logical to me isn't necessarily endorsed by the scripture, by the religion, and that was always a struggle. So I like being able to abandon that and just focus on the intellect. And the second thing is giving up piety for morality, like being able to do what I thought was right and making those decisions. So I think the idea of autonomy, being open to all kinds of possibilities, thinking, okay, life after death, what happens? Well, it could be this is what logically could happen, could not happen. Maybe after I'll just go right back to what I was like before I died and before I was born. So, having those, being able to open your mind and consider a lot of possibilities rather than being restricted, I think was the best thing.
Actually, I want to add something. Sorry, did I interrupt? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So actually, Chase in the live chat is saying my favorite part is not being afraid of hell, and that is also very true. But for me, even more than that, not being afraid that my parents are going to go to hell, because I thought that if Islam is true, I'm going to be able to figure out a way to be a good Muslim, right? And I'm going to figure out how to go to heaven, right? But I knew that my parents were not practicing Muslims, and they were both going to go, and they're definitely going to end up in hell when they die. And the idea of them burning was really traumatizing to me, right? So knowing that they're just going to die, and after that there's not going to be torture, that was very, very that was a really good feeling, which is weird because now you're happy about your parents dying. This is why people say when my mom died, people ask when a lot of people knowing I'm an atheist came to me and said like, aren't you sad that you don't believe in an afterlife, and don't you want to see your mom again? Isn't that cold, such a cold belief, that so sad that you think you're never going to see her again? And I always respond to them like, first of all, your belief systems shouldn't be based on what you want, right? Obviously it should be based on reality. Even if reality is sad, well, that's fucking reality. But the thing is that this is not that as sad as you're making it sound to be, because Islam and Christianity, they don't come with just heaven. They don't just come with it's a package deal. They come with hell. And based on all of these religions, my mom would be in hell right now. So yeah, I'm sad that I'm not gonna see her again, but I'm happy that she's not being tormented by a sadistic god somewhere right now. So, anyways, go on.
Yeah. So Taha is sending love from Pakistan. Taha, well, hey, answer is that let us know where you are there as well, if you can. If you can't, that's fine too. But in any case, yeah, love right back to you. Now, let's keep going.
There's some really good questions coming up. Like, I know you're way up there, but some of the new questions being posted there, some of them are really good.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get into. Sorry, I'm trying to give other people chances too. Because we've answered questions from some people, and then other people, want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So Taha, okay, so Taha's asked later on. This is Taha from Pakistan. Is Islamic terrorism really a problem when compared to with state-sponsored terrorism all over the world? That's a very good question.
I mean,
yeah. Do you want to start?
Okay, so what's the definition of state-sponsored terrorism? Wouldn't that just be like war? And also, a problem doesn't. Sorry, the question is it a problem at all? Because your problem doesn't have to be the world's biggest problem for it to be the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so I could do that same thing with state-sponsored. You're worried about state-sponsored terrorism? Well, here you go. Is state-sponsored terrorism as bad as global warming? Right? Is that as big? No, probably not. Maybe I think more people are gonna suffer from global warming. So who cares about state-sponsored terrorism? Every problem that you address, maybe you could look at a bigger problem and then say, well, maybe we shouldn't care about it. The thing is, as an activist, you should just figure out a problem. It doesn't have to be, if we all focus on the world's biggest problem, then we all would be like, I don't know, where would we be? We all would be just focusing on global warming or AI or something like that right now. The thing is that you're not going to be, the problems that you pick to focus on, it should be based on your passion, because probably you're going to be better at it. If you don't know much, if you're not going to be very effective at solving global warming problems, then maybe don't do that, right? Even if it's a bigger problem, right? So focus on what you're passionate about, focus on what you're interested in, focus on where you can make the most difference, right? The thing is, the biggest problem in the world is apathy, right? So as long as you're focusing on a problem and trying to solve that, you're doing more than most people, even if you're contributing little. Even if you're contributing little, you are still doing more than most people, right? And I think the main thing we need to be focusing on is bringing people from apathy to actually focus on doing something to solve something, rather than telling people that they're not focusing on the greatest problem in the whole world, even though they're doing something good. Because there's so many people that are doing nothing, that if more people just did something, we would cover so many of the world's problems. If more people did have some activism, a little bit of activism in their life, or at least support, or even if you don't want to do any activism, do support for your favorite, whatever your favorite activist is, like just a little bit of that. I mean, that would be still activism. But go on.
Yeah, and a lot of this is also about what kind of thing drives you, what's closer to you. So it's Islamic, again, state-sponsored terrorism is not different from Islamic terrorism when you look at a lot of the governments of Muslim majority countries. If you look at the governments of Iran or of Saudi Arabia, or even if some of the sort of mob politics in Bangladesh or in Pakistan. Or Pakistan, actually, the actual government, all the blasphemy laws. So there isn't a very. It's not like there's a very hard line between the two. That's a very strict dichotomy.
Oh,
So that's one thing as well. The
we,
other thing is that sorry, Armin, you're itching to say something.
we got a super chat that I agree with so much, but you finish your thought. But we're gonna after
Okay, so
that.
we'll do that. We'll do that next.
No, no. Okay,
But
yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah. So I want to say one thing. I think David Frum wrote something that's really interesting in the Atlantic some time ago, where he talked about. I think he was talking about his debate that he had with Steve Bannon, the monk debate in Toronto. So he said that the kind of thing that drove him was that there were many societies and many civilizations, I guess, that came out of the Enlightenment, the Age of Enlightenment, that were based on secular values and they were based on democracy and individual liberty and free speech and so on. And these societies that were based on these Enlightenment values, the thing that drives him is to protect them. And so for the longest time, the biggest threat to those societies based on Enlightenment values was the threat of the communism. And Stalinism, all that, and fascism. He later on the biggest threat for that became from the Islamic jihadists, right? And now there's another rising threat to those societies, and that threat is coming from the far right authoritarian populist sort of far right movement and Trumpism and so on. So with different his whole idea is that those are the societies that I want to protect. I want to make sure they stay intact. So these different, very, very different kind of threats to those societies that come from different parts of the ideological spectrum. When there are threats to it, he finds all of them as important targets. And for me, I think it's the same thing. Zubin Madon, we had Zubin Madon on the show recently, and he had talked about how the bigotry of the majority is always more dangerous than the bigotry of the minority. And that is different in different countries. In sort of over 50 Muslim majority countries, the bigotry of the majority is Islamic bigotry against the non-Muslims and against Muslims as well, Muslims who think differently or who stray from the tribe or stray from the belief. In a place like the US, the majoritarian bigotry is right at the moment, it's Trumpism. So a lot of people are focused on that. So it really depends on the context, the time that you're living in, and the kind of values that you're driven by in terms of what you see as threats to what those values are.
Okay, let's get to Billy's comment. Billy
Sure.
is saying the world's biggest. This is super chat by Billy B. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat, Billy. And he's saying the world's biggest problem is that we are going to die, and this is such a big problem, and that people don't even see it as a problem. Of course, we're all.
I don't think it's a problem.
Oh my God! No,
it's a one solution. It's the one that you always have a door open, no
No.
matter how bad things get.
No, okay. That's the difference between being able to die and having to die, okay? Yes, you should be able to die, but the fact that everybody has to die, this death is a disease that people don't even recognize as a disease. The thing is that if we die, if me and you, Ali, die, and the people in the live chat, if you guys die, we are probably the last people in history that died, because I think the generation that's going to come after us is not going to die. They're going to finally achieve immortality, right? And death is going to be an option, which is
because of the integration of
because of many things. I'm not going to get. I'm not because of many things, right? But the fact that we have death is so universal that we have accepted it makes it even a bigger problem. The fact is that if the people that don't die, the people that cross that time, that point in time when we finally know how to not die, they are going to live to see us become like gods, probably, right? Unless something really bad happens. But everybody else that died, that missed that line that we're getting very close to, everybody else that missed that line is going to basically be cheated out of something like heaven, a heaven that we created ourselves, which is we're the unluckiest generation that has ever lived if we die. And I also, Kala, I don't agree with you that say like, oh, if we die, if all humans die, I think that's what Kala said, the world will still go on. Yeah, but the world doesn't matter if there's nobody observing it.
Yeah.
Death is part of life cycle. Isn't immortality shit. So here's the thing: death is part of life cycle, but it doesn't have to be. We can, I mean, human.
We're
There's
at
so
the
many.
point now where we can start thinking about it. I feel like the
But
us being the last generation and this happening starting from the next generation, I would love it if that was true for my daughter, but I feel like it's going to take a couple more generations than that.
I don't think so.
I think we're
so close. I think we're so close. Soraya is saying is immortality is shit. Well, I don't think so, and I think there should be an option. If somebody thinks immortality is shit, then they get to have the option to die. But I don't think that should be death should be mandatory, right? I think that there should be an option. I don't think people understand once we are able to, people are like, oh, wouldn't you get bored after 1,000 years? No, when we can tinker with our brains, when we can get into our brains, you could just delete boredom. Do you understand where we're gonna get? Like, if people today had a glimpse of where we're gonna be, nobody would want to miss out on that. If they could just see what we are going to, where we're going to be and what we're going to accomplish. If you could just,
we're probably just gonna, but
Anyways.
We will probably.
But
procrastinate
death
a lot
is
more.
death is the problem. That if we knew, if we had just put all this religions and wars and all this aside, right now, today, if we put all our resources together, we could kill death today if we just stopped. So many other things. And
so just to the audience, if what Armin is saying is correct, I think the first thing that we're going to have to do is get Supreme Court term limit, because those fucking lifetime appointments are not going to work once we're immortal.
All right.
That's not going to happen. Anyway,
Okay.
So James is saying, is there a risk in criticizing Islam in the West of causing casual Muslims to feel attacked and so find greater solidarity with traditionalists and Selfies than they would otherwise?
So it's the exact opposite of that. But go on, Ali.
No, there isn't. But let's explain that a little bit. The reason, this idea of solidarity with traditionalists and Salafists, that kind of thing does happen sometimes. For instance, in societies where they're very destitute and very desperate. For instance, in Gaza, right? So in Gaza, they had a sort of secular, very open Palestinian government with Fatah, but Fatah was so corrupt and their livelihoods were so compromised because of Fatah that when Hamas came in, they said, hey, we're going to give you free healthcare. We're going to give you cash. We're going to give you some, social benefits and social assistance for your kids and all that. Then people were able to ally with them. That's one example. Another example is in Iraq, when, the Shia, democratically elected Shia government started cracking down on Sunnis and discriminating, then many of them sort of stood with ISIS because they were in a desperate situation. People in the West are not in that kind of desperate situation. So they're not going to start aligning themselves ideologically with people that they, especially with tradition, because they can't stand, most sort of moderate and progressive Muslims cannot stand the mullahs and the bearded people, and they make as much fun of them as we do. They don't like them.
I think it's the exact opposite. The one reason why anti-Muslim bigotry maybe increased in the past couple of years is exactly because we didn't criticize Islam, right? Because people were afraid to criticize Islam. And the only people that were scared of Islam, people that had concerns with Islam, saw that the only sources of Islam, the main sources of Islamic critique, comes from people with other intentions, people from
Christian fundamentalists and far right
groups, and basically their concern drove them to those groups, right? But if we had made it more possible for us to have civil discussions with Muslims about the disagreements that we have, friendly civil discussions about our disagreements about Islam, first of all, we would have been able to normalize it to Muslims, right? That to you, this is a religion. To you, this is the best way of life. To us, this is an idea. And if you put yourself in our positions, us criticizing it is not an attack. And us being able to, we wanted to reach Muslims. They made it very impossible by considering this kind of bigotry, and because of non-Muslim people that want to protect Muslims in this like bubble wrap situation, they Muslims became more sensitive. I mean, many Muslims are very sensitive, but they bought the narrative as well. I mean, if you look what we're doing when we reach Muslims ourselves and talk to them, and once they see that our hate for Islam does not translate for our hate to Muslims, they go from seeing us as bigots to actually saying, okay, I could actually have a conversation here very fast. My experience is that even my most extreme views, my extreme positions against Islam, where people told me that, no, Armin, this is too far. You doing this is going to lose you a Muslim audience. My experience is that, no, if you let me talk to them, they could see that, yeah, maybe this guy is an idiot. He's wrong about Islam, but he doesn't mean he means well, right? And I managed to actually gain more Muslim audience rather than lose them with my very extreme positions against Islam. So I don't, based on my experience, it doesn't lose you a Muslim audience. The only thing that loses Muslim to more extremist group is actually treating them as so sensitive that you give monopoly to the bigots and the alt-right and the people with other intentions other than criticizing ideas. You make those groups bigger, so it's not criticizing Islam that enforces that, not the other way around.
I think there are a lot of and I get asked this a lot whenever I speak, is that there's always Westerners, usually white Westerners, who will come up and they will ask, what can I do? How can I say this? If I have a problem, if I want to criticize Islam, I'm an atheist. I criticize all the other religions. Nobody ever says anything. But with Islam, everybody's a little queasy about it. There's two things I say to that. The first one is that if you're singling Islam out for protection while you're criticizing the other religions, that's actually bigotry.
Yeah.
That's a form of bigotry, because you're assuming that Muslims are not capable of handling dialogue.
Children.
They're not capable of taking joke. Yeah, they're like, you're infantilizing them.
Right.
That's one thing. The second thing I say is that right now, align yourself with so many of these sort of atheist and free thinker and even if you want reformists like Muslim voices, like align them, tell them about the podcast. I'm plugging the podcast, but this is for a genuinely selfless reason. Tell them about this. Tell them that there are people within the community, and what that does is that actually helps the idea that Muslims themselves want to perpetuate that this is not a monolith. We're not monoliths. Say, look, there's these guys who are atheists who actually don't believe in Islam anymore. They also come from the Muslim community. So it is very diverse. Not every Muslim walks around in a hijab. There's many other people who have a range of different views. So refer them to the people that whether the ex-Muslims or the free thinkers or atheists in the Muslim world that you know. And that's a really great way to get in on the dialogue and participate in the conversation. And don't, for God's sakes, see what I did there? Yeah, don't back off from the dialogue just because you're white. Don't do that. I mean, as I think Yasmin Mohammed, she points us out a lot that gay people did need straight allies. I mean, the feminist movement did need support from men as well. Everybody has a say in issues that matter. So make sure you do speak up. Anyway, let's move on.
There was something bad.
Yeah, guys. So we have about 15 more minutes. So I'm going to continue.
Renzo, I said something I want to respond to.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Armin, if you see a question, just read it out, because I'm probably going to miss some.
No, Renzo said if we you look for another question, but Renzo's saying if we crack the secret of immortality, which we will, unless something really shitty happens, Renzo's saying if we crack the secret of immortality, a global civil war will break out between the rich immortals and the poor mortals. You'd be glad to miss it. I don't think that's true. I think if you get to a point where anything could be turned into energy and you don't rely on food and everything, I don't think there's going to be... You need to have limited resources for people to fight. When you can make unlimited resources, there's nothing to fight about. And I think we're going to get there.
And there is even that civil war, the global civil war, if it does happen, and this sounds really cold and really, I apologize for this, but eventually, who's going to die out? It is clearly going to be an ephemeral, sort of very fleeting kind of thing, where if the immortals are fighting the mortals, eventually the mortals are going to die. They're going to have kids. Those kids will probably eventually. This stuff, I think, it normalizes. It's kind of like where when you had the tech revolution, you had people who benefited from the tech revolution. They moved forward, and the gap between them and the people who were left behind by it, and usually those are people who are poorer, was massive. But then there was a compensatory thing that happened where suddenly mobile phones came out. Mobile phones were very affordable. Internet connections became very affordable, and then suddenly they had massive penetration in places like Africa. So even the poorest people, and I know this, like the poorest people in Pakistan and Africa and in a lot of these African countries, they have mobile phones. So even though the income equality gap is increasing, the gap of opportunity is narrowing. So these things eventually do reach some kind of equilibrium.
I want to answer the next question by Muscal. So
Do it.
Muscal is asking, how do you both of us, how do you think the world can stop Middle East terrorism? And my answer is that if Secular Jihadist gets to 500 patrons, we're going to be able to translate our shows into Arabic and Persian and Turkish and Urdu. And that's how you stop Middle East terrorism. So the answer to Muscal is to get Secular Jihadist to 500 patrons. But go ahead, Ali.
It's going to happen with the Middle East. It's going to happen with more dialogue. Muscal.
That's my answer, basically. Same thing I said, yeah.
And let me tell you something. Usually what happens is whenever you have these issues and these little areas of violence, a lot of it has to do with tribal differences, whether it's religious differences, ethnic differences, a whole bunch of variables. But what happened is, when I was growing up in Saudi Arabia, and I've talked about this here before, is that we didn't have any media from outside. So the way that North Korea is right now, that is exactly what it was like growing up there, because all of the news magazines that came from the US were censored. If you bought the World Book Encyclopedia, the evolution pages were ripped out. There was we didn't know of the example I like to give is Denzel Washington came to Mecca to shoot Malcolm X. Non-Muslims are not allowed in Mecca. And they somehow, nobody in Saudi Arabia knew because they just blocked all of the news. Nobody knew. Now that is very different from how it is right now. Now, you have the internet. You can't block the internet completely. People will always find a way to get to it, right? And they'll get that you can't stop the spread of information now. So the way that the printing press made the Bible transparent to the common man in Europe, that triggered the Reformation, later the Enlightenment. This is a process that the Muslim world generally sat out during the time. The internet is now just making this possible in the Middle East and the Arab world and the Muslim world. The Tahrir Square and the Tunisian Arab Spring, when those movements started, they started on Facebook and they started on Twitter and they started on all of these these social media platforms. That's how people were able to organize. So that kind of dialogue is already, terrorism. I don't know if people have noticed, but even though it still is a problem, it is kind of not as much of a problem as it was even just a few years ago. We've gone from smashing planes into buildings, skyscrapers, to driving cars into crowds. It's still a huge problem in Muslim majority countries. But even in Pakistan, the number of terrorist attacks in the last 4 or 5 years has decreased dramatically.
Just to be clear, and this is not to make light of the problem, but Islamic terrorism, obviously Islamic terrorism is a huge problem that needs to be addressed. But the biggest cost of Islam is not terrorism.
Exactly. Yes.
Islam fucks people's lives in many more ways than terrorism. Just imagine when Erdogan decided that, hey, interest rates are bad because Islam. How many people does that affect, in Turkey, in a country as big as Turkey? And then compare that to, the number of victims of terrorism. The numbers are astronomically wide. So every time a politician decides that like this because of Islam, now a better decision was not made because of Islam. And and these are not interesting. To many people, they're not newsworthy. They don't grab headlines. But a lot of people more people are affected by it than a car bombing here or there. And those are obviously tragic, but if you compare that, and nobody should, obviously that needs to be also addressed, but I'm just saying that Islam and religion, sneaks in and, fucks with your life in so many different ways. It's not just car explosions, But go on.
Yeah, so let's see. Do you have another question? Or
Well, no,
there's a U.S. politics question that came in very, very early that I want to talk about, but I don't know if you do. But if you want to prioritize something else, go for it.
Well, Elif is saying, I love you both. I'm also an ex-Muslim. We love you back. I learned so much from you guys. Thank you. Please never stop. And then send the kiss emoji. Thank you.
No plans to stop.
No plans to stop. Yeah.
Not just yet. Yeah.
Soraya is never. Because we're gonna be immortal. So, 1,000 year from now, we're still gonna have secular justice. Soraya is saying, please try Hindi too. Ali knows Hindi is a major language in India. Urdu and Hindi is mixed up in India. So Soraya, I think this is how eventually, once we get enough funding to be able to translate our shows, this is how we're gonna calculate it. We're gonna see the number of Muslims that speak that language. And then minus the number of Muslims that speak that language but also understand English, right? So, for example, if I was like the Atheist Republic show, for example, I want to translate it as well, but I would never pick Tagalog because most people in Philippines speak English, so it would be a waste. So, but in India, I don't know how many of the people that speak Hindi also speak English, right? But so you minus that, and so I think Arabic obviously has to be the first one, but then you go down the list and say what's the second language. 22 Arabic countries speak. 22 countries in the world speak Arabic, so I'm pretty sure Arabic is going to be the first one, right? Even though most Muslims are not Arabs. But then you're going to have to, what's the second language? I think the second language is going to end up being Urdu or Indonesian, Malay. But so, but you have to minus whatever that number is to the number of people that already speak English. That's how I'm going to calculate it. But yeah, Hindi is Muslim. There's many Muslims that speak Hindi. So yeah, go on, Ali. Go to that question.
Yeah, we did get a super chat, I see.
Oh, wow.
From Nicholas Paulson. Who gave us we're saying the amounts, right? So it's like actually 50 Swedish krona.
Oh wow,
that's actually pretty cool. Thank you very much, Nicholas. And his question is, Robert Spencer from Jihad Watch is accused of spreading hate against Muslims. I think he is okay. Have I misunderstood anything? Thanks for the podcast. So Nicholas,
I think you've seen a lot from him. I haven't seen anything racist from him yet, but I haven't been looking. But you have been dealing with him.
So I've seen a lot. And we actually talked about this once.
I read his book. His book was good.
Yeah, we've just so the thing that I think about Robert Spencer, people like Geert Wilders, and these guys is they have the right diagnosis. They have I agree with their criticisms of the religion. I have no issues with that. Their prescription is wrong. A lot of what they say that should be done in response to this, first of all, is I think that they exaggerate the threat to a point where it's difficult to take seriously, and that harms what we're doing. The analogy I gave for this before was the climate change. You have people who are climate change obviously real. It's obviously anthropogenic, but the problem is that there are some people who are talking very realistically about climate change. They're talking about the time scale and what an emergency is. There are other people who politicized it, and they're either exaggerating it to such an extreme that the real threat isn't being taken seriously, the real level of it, because everybody thinks, oh, okay, this is just all hype, or they're underplaying it. What I think Robert Spencer does is that he brings so much outlandish stuff into his criticism, like talking about how everybody's doing taqiyya, people like Majid Nawaz are stealth jihadists. Right. When he does things like that, it makes the work that someone like people like Armin and I are doing much more difficult, because I mean the way that he talks about things is almost like we all need to just get in a bunker because Islam is going to take over everything, and everybody you're talking to who appears to be secular is just posing, and that's I think it's completely counterproductive, and it just gives ammunition to regressive leftists. It gives ammunition to people who want to die. So, I don't think that his diagnosis is wrong. We're right about that. I just think that the whole going into panic mode just really harms.
I think this goes back again to what the main cost of Islam is, and I think a lot of anti-Islam advocates constantly make it Islam to be a threat to just the Western way of life, right? But I see Islam as a cancer on the entire fucking planet, not just on the West. And they focus on an us versus them narrative rather than seeing that focusing on the fact that the main victims of Islam are Muslims themselves, and the main cost of is what it does to Muslims and the countries and it's not. I mean, I think terrorism and bomb attacks and stuff like that. Yeah, of course they're issues, but if you really want to fight Islam, you don't. It's not about like, oh, just keep your shit there. Just as this is you guys. Uh, don't hurt us. Warn people. I mean, if you're there again, there sometimes exaggerate how much of a threat it is to. How much of a threat a terrorist threat is. I mean, Islam is still a major threat to the West, but it's not gonna. It's sneaking in different ways than terrorist attacks, right? It's sneaking in ways that governments start recognizing it as something that needs to be protected. That's how it's sneaking in. It's changing people's behavior towards being very sensitive towards certain ideas or certain culture, accepting certain ways of life. And I think that's how Islam is coming to the West, but that's how Islam is in Muslim countries, which should be even a bigger concern, because those people are what you are afraid of happening in the West. If you're afraid of that, then you should be even extra concerned about people that are living that life already. And I think a lot of these people don't recognize that, and a lot of them don't just see it as an us versus them, rather than actually going out and going right at the source. I mean, I don't want to play this anti-Islam fight that I want to fight. I don't want to fight a defensive battle. I like, hey, this is fucking shit. Just don't bring it here. Here's my wall. Here's my shield. No, I think if you do that, you're gonna, if the entire forest is burning, and you're not going out to put it out, and you just think, I'm just going to sit in my hut, as long as it's not going to get to my hut, it's fine. Well, it's going to get to your hut. I think you have to get out, and you have to go to the source, and you have to put it out. And I think that's why the battle I'm fighting is more of an offensive game, going to the source, going to the people rather than... And again, mistrusting people because they're Muslim backfires, because the only way to fight Islam is to talk to Muslims. And the only way to talk to Muslims is to befriend Muslims. So fighting Islam requires befriending Muslims. And go on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that, and I would say, do you want to make a point or make a change? And I think it's great if you want to get a lot of Twitter likes and stuff, and you can do all of the stuff that I think that is counterproductive, like Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer do. I mean, you can do that all you want to, and you will get a massive following. A lot of people like you, and you'll get the impression that you're really making a difference, but you're just talking to people who generally agree with you. I think Armin's absolutely right. If you want to go out and if you want to go beyond that and actually want to change things, rather than just making sure that you're making a point and people think that your tweets are great, then you're going to have to go beyond that and actually engage people. I would refer people. We had a previous episode with Leon Korteweg, who was a former white nationalist in Amsterdam. And he is also against Islam. I mean, he's a big supporter of ex-Muslims and the ex-Muslim movement, but he is also very, very anti-nationalism.
But you're not going to be able to find that episode.
Why not?
Because YouTube put it on limited, I don't know what they call it.
You're kidding me? Seriously?
Yeah.
You should, but then listen to it on iTunes. Go on iTunes.
Yeah, go on iTunes. But it's weird because we're talking against white nationalism, but because of it's white nationalism, it got censored. You can't find it. It's unshareable. You have to actually get somebody to actually send you the freaking link to be able to watch it. So
idiotic. But in any case, yeah, you should be able to find it on your podcast app anyway, and I think that was a really, really amazing conversation. We have time for one more question because
there's some really good ones though. Can you do three really fast ones?
I can't. I gotta go.
Okay.
I told you I gotta run. But do you want to continue after?
No.
No. Okay, so Another question here. Why don't you choose a question? If you really like
No, no,
one, choose your favorite one.
no, no. You choose. I feel.
Okay, so I have James who's saying, do you feel a need to show a casual Muslim who does not agree with homophobia or death for apostates or hudud or wife beating what Islam really says and try to deconvert them?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. This is a
always.
cat. This is like an entire episode. Okay. Um, good. You picked the best question. Do you feel that? So here's the thing.
I thought you'd like it.
Yeah. Do you? Here. I'll throw the question back at you. If somebody believes in, wait, let me get this right. Astrology, right? Yes, astrology.
Yeah.
Do you feel the need to tell them that what they believe is bullshit? Yes, I do. Even though there's no wars committed in the name of zodiac signs, right? Because bullshit is bullshit. Whenever you fight bad ideas, you fight falsehood, you fight misinformation, no matter what it is and no matter the consequences, because at the end of the day, the more false beliefs people have, um the shittier their lives are going to be. Actually, I should not say no matter the consequences. I'm just saying no matter the immediate consequences, because in general, if people live based on nonsense, on average, is not good for the world. If more people live their lives based on reality, the world would be a better place.
It's better for everybody.
Yeah, so you don't feel like, oh, this specific example, I don't see what the problem here is. The problem is the false belief. You just fight false beliefs no matter what the false belief is, right? Belief, you have to encourage skepticism. You have to encourage people looking for evidence. You have to encourage critical thinking. If you allow harmless beliefs without evidence, you're also opening the door for harmful beliefs without evidence. The critical thinking is the only filter you could introduce to people. If you remove that filter, what else control do you have on where these beliefs land? Do you think once you open that gate, the critical thinking gate, you're going to now be able to have some control over whether it's going to be harmful or not so harmful? You have lost the only filter that you could have added. The thing is that the people that believe in astrology, the people that believe that stars in the fucking sky, when you were born, somehow has a influence on your personality, they are also probably going to be more likely to be convinced that vaccines cause autism. So the thing is that when you don't people challenge false beliefs, you're not encouraging critical thinking. And when you have gullible people, just because this idea is not harming them, that doesn't mean they're not going to get conned. They're not going to get taken advantage of. Their gullibility is not going to be misused against them. You just give them the weapons to recognize bullshit, and they use it on everything, not just on the ones that you find harmful. Go on, Ellie.
Yeah, so I agree with that. The only thing is, like, for me, I don't overtly try to deconvert them. If somebody's already halfway there, because I think that's a question, that if there's a casual Muslim who's already does not agree with homophobia or death for apostates or wife beating and all of that, then what I talk to them about, usually I bring up this idea that what you're saying isn't really in the religion. I mean, you're not getting your morality from the religion anyway. You're using your sense of right and wrong, your inherent morality, to interpret this. So why do you even need it? When you already have that system within you. If you already have all of the apparatus intact, then why not just cut out the middleman, right? So there's I think that usually putting in little bits of doubt in them, or just by being yourself. Sometimes, people like that will meet you, and often casual Muslims who are opposed to homophobia, who are generally liberal, who are generally even secular, they want separation of religion and state, and they don't support death for apostates. Often they are the way they are, and they haven't really left because they don't know that's an option, because they've never really thought of being ex-Muslim is an option. So often what's enough is you don't even have to talk to them about it. You just have to go out and be yourself.
Right.
Like, what do you do? Oh yeah, I just gave it up. I'm kind of like you. We're aligned on things, but I just decided to give it up because what's the point? I don't want the middleman anyway. And when that happens, they often realize, like, oh wait, so I can oppose all this stuff, but I don't even have to believe in anything. I can come up with my own thing. So sometimes you can actually just have an influence just by example.
Jim,
but
sorry, James is saying. Sorry, you wanted to say something. I should stop
No, go
interrupting you.
No,
James,
keep going. Keep going.
James is saying, people are gonna message me. My brother actually listens to this podcast, and he told me, Armin, why you keep interrupting Ali? Sorry.
No, this is fine. It's fine.
James is saying, I agree that false beliefs should be challenged, but is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile to prioritize? The thing is that, okay, so this, it's not about even the false beliefs, whether the harmful ones or the harmless ones, the one you think are harmless. The thing is that if without critical thinking skills, how are you going to just target only the harmful false belief system? What are you going to give them to shoot? The weapons that you're going to give them to shoot them down will target all false beliefs. So you can't just. The thing is that if what you have to focus on is giving people that weaponry, not picking and choosing which false beliefs that you want to pick, because it doesn't work like that. The critical thinking, you have to, in fact, every false belief that you have, it's a target practice. So if I'm telling you why astrology is bullshit, you are being introduced to critically think about your beliefs, and that could apply to everything else. You're being encouraged to be skeptical about your views, and that could now be God, which is a much more harmful idea than astrology. But anyways, Ali, go ahead.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the end of it, guys. I'm sorry, I have a hard stop today, so I gotta run.
Yeah.
Sorry
so
to
much
stuff that we could.
The questions that we couldn't get into. You guys are awesome. Thank you for the questions. Were really
thank
good.
You for very done. Yeah, they were excellent. This was a lot of fun. This is actually and misconceptions about us. I mean, this is something that we could do probly more episodes.
This is why I don't have a social life, because I have you guys in the live chat. I can't. There's no way I'm gonna have a rewarding conversation with anybody in my offline life.
Yeah, but dude, to have a social life anyway. It's good.
This is my social life. You guys in the live chat: Beach, Renzo, Soraya, Uday, Mars, Nicholas, Christy is my
Daha from Pakistan.
You guys are my social life.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much for being here. I gotta run. I love all of you. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for the conversation as always. And we're gonna be back with more episodes of this. So, thanks. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.